Good morning. I'm eagerly waiting to see you all in today's Health Hour by Apollo 24/7. I'm sure we're all concerned about COVID 19 vaccinations. These doubts can get overwhelming. Can we protect our loved ones and family members by giving the vaccination safely? Who should be taking vaccination and who should be taking precautions? Answering all your doubts in the live session is Apollo Hospital's Group Medical Director, Dr. Anupam Sibal, who is going to join us by 11 a.m. So join us with your family and friends and ask all your questions about COVID 19 vaccinations. Let's clear the doubts.
It's always been there, standing between you and your health. A wall. Between a pain that won't disappear and a doctor who magically appears. Between a long wait on a hospital bench and staying right where you are, at home. Between finding yourself out of medicines and finding them at your doorstep, whatever the time. Between years of health records all over the place and all your records in one organized access from anywhere place. Between your current regimen and the recommended routine. The wall. We don't need it anymore. Say hello to Apollo 24/7. This is India's largest end-to-end omni-channel healthcare ecosystem, designed to touch more lives than ever before and delivering its promise in 3 important ways. 1. Listen. Talk to us anytime from anywhere. We've got 7,000 doctors and 30,000 healthcare professionals listening. 2. Advise. We'll give you expert advice you can rely on, because it comes from India's #1 healthcare provider. 3. Assist. We bring you India's largest health network of pharmacies, clinics, hospitals, and health insurance experts. 20 million people already trust us for their care, and a further 50,000 people are discovering this every day. Apollo 24/7. Expertise is for everyone.
Namaskar and welcome to Apollo 24/7's Health Hour. The topic for today's show is COVID-19 vaccines, the facts versus myths. Today, as the entire nation is grappling with this deadly second wave of coronavirus, we all need to stay safe and follow the safety measures and precautions, do everything possible to keep ourselves safe. So this is the need of hour. We require advice, we require care. Understanding the need of the hour, Apollo 24/7 has conceptualized this show, and this is the online platform of Apollo Hospitals Group, which brings you Health Hour with Apollo 24/7 experts, wherein Apollo experts will reach to your household on every Sunday, discuss a problem area, and address your issues or concerns live. So in today's show, let us talk about vaccinations. All the doubts in vaccination, on the vaccinations, and the myths about the vaccinations will be cleared shortly. Joining us in this show is Apollo Hospitals Group Medical Director, Dr. Anupam Sibal, who will join us very shortly. Before that, let's talk about the vaccination drive. Sanjeevani is a project where we are involved. Apollo 24/7 is the health expert, and the vaccination partner is Apollo Hospitals on this novel cause of vaccinating the country. With the launch of COVID-19 vaccines, it's time that we ensure every Indian gets a shot of life. Federal Bank and Network 18's initiative Sanjeevani aims to do so by doing its bit to help Indians to get a shot of healthy life. With the first of its kind of COVID-19 vaccination drive, it aims to create awareness, initiate conversations, and enable change and create impact towards better health outcomes. So the project's brand ambassador is Mr. Sonu Sood. Let's hear the Good Samaritan who took his vaccination at Apollo Hospital after booking his slot on the Apollo 24/7 app under the Sanjeevani initiative. Here's Sonu Sood.
Our campaign ambassador Sonu Sood was able to get a hassle-free jab done, all thanks to our health expert on the campaign, Apollo 24/7. Earlier, he used the Apollo 24/7 app to register himself in what is a very easy and quick process.
Hi everyone, so all set. So today is a vaccine day. आज मैं पहली दफ़ा जाकर I'm taking the shot, and I'm pretty excited. And I just want everyone to follow this. Today I'm in very safe hands of the nurses, doctors, and staff of Apollo 24/7. So all set. Let's follow. So all done. पता भी नहीं चलेगा आपको, लेकिन आपकी सेहत को ज़रूर पता चलेगा कि आप एकदम सुरक्षित हो. So just go have your vaccine today. So the vaccine is done. एक बहुत ही important चीज़ आपको याद रखना है कि वैक्सीन लेने के बाद 30 मिनट्स तक डॉक्टर्स के पास रहना है. आई थिंक छोटी सी जिम्मेदारी आपके देश के लिए. थैंक यू.
So Sonu Sood has got his shot for life. आपने लगाया क्या? Now that 18 plus, all the people above 18-year-old are eligible for vaccinations, do get your vaccine done. Make sure that you register on cowin.gov.in. This portal lets you register. Please go register and book a slot at the nearest Apollo hospitals. And remember, having the vaccination, getting vaccinated is the only way that you can keep safe. So 18 plus, everybody gradually, आज नहीं तो कल हम लोगों को वैक्सीन लगाना ही है. Please go ahead and make sure that India is safe and we shall get back to a normal life soon. So let's start today's show. Let me invite our expert today, Dr. Anupam Sibal, who's the Group Medical Director and pediatric gastroenterologist of Apollo Hospitals. Professor Sibal has been working as the Group Medical Director at Apollo Hospitals since 2005, who's also a Senior Consultant Pediatric Gastroenterologist and Hepatologist at Indraprastha Apollo Hospitals in Delhi since 1997. Professor Sibal, acknowledged as an international expert in pediatric and gastroenterology and hepatology, is an honorary clinical professor at Macquarie University, Sydney, Australia. And he helped establish pediatric liver transplantation in India in 1998. He has 117 publications in medical literature. He is the current president of GAPIO, that is Global Association of Physicians of Indian Origin, that brings together 1.4 million physicians of Indian origin from 54 countries onto one platform. He's recognized as a motivational speaker and a best-selling author. It's a privilege to have our expert today. Let me welcome Dr. Anupam Sibal onto the show. Good morning, doctor. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Jhansi ji. Thank you very much, and a very good morning to all the viewers across the country. Yesterday was a very special day because something that the medical community has been so excited about actually happened. Vaccination open to everyone above the age of 18 in our country, and that is really a major tool that we have in our war against COVID-19.
Exactly, doctor. I'm waiting for my jab too, and I will definitely use Apollo 247 to register and get my jab as well. So let's start and understand the vaccine journey. How have we been able to evolve, develop a vaccine, and how is it how efficient is this? What's the journey of vaccine?
Right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sort of share some thoughts on what actually entails vaccination. What's a vaccine? How do we get protection? And try and answer the questions that you've posed. Very relevant, very important. And these are questions that everyone has on their mind. So what's a vaccine? A vaccine is a substance which causes induction of antibodies that are capable of binding to a specific toxin or pathogen. And in our case, what we are talking about is the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Basically, what a vaccine does is it triggers two types of immunity. We have the humoral immunity, and I think everyone knows about it because the term antibodies has been used so often. So what happens with the triggering of the humoral immunity is that the B cells secrete antibodies that cause clearance of pathogens. But we also have cell-mediated immunity, and there are two types of T cells that are the cells that actually help in the cell-mediated immunity. We have the helper T cells, the cytotoxic T cells. And when we talk about vaccination, and it's important that everyone who's seeing this remembers this, that while we have antibodies that will develop after exposure to a vaccine and we can measure them, we can't really measure the response of the cell-mediated immunity. So what happens there, we cannot measure in the lab. But it's very important in protection, and this must be kept in mind, especially when somebody's antibodies, if they decide to get them measured after vaccine, don't rise. So you still have the cell-mediated immunity. And also, very importantly, we must remember that we have the memory B cells and memory T cells. So what do? They get activated should there be exposure to the same pathogen again. So for example, you get infection A and you get exposed to the same bacteria or virus a few months later, weeks later, years later, then the immune system through the memory B and T cells will trigger an immune response to fight that infection. And the same happens with vaccination. You take a vaccine, but if you get exposed to the virus, the memory B cell and T cells will remember that their body had been exposed to this agent and will trigger an immune response. And this is again something that not very many people are familiar with. Herd immunity. Now, this has become such an important term. What does it mean? It means immunity of a population or a community. And how can we get herd immunity? Either people get a natural infection, which is of course not desirable at all with SARS-CoV-2 virus because it's a serious problem, or you vaccinate. Now with measles, 95% of the community has to be vaccinated to achieve herd immunity. For polio, it's 80%. For COVID-19, we don't have a clear answer. Now, we've been talking about vaccination now for about a year. What would an ideal vaccine be like? Well, it should be a single dose, right? Who wants to go back for another vaccine? It should confirm long-term immunity, perhaps even for life. Who wants an injection? Wouldn't it be wonderful if it was like oral, like polio drops? It should have high thermal stability. And it should be multivalent in that it should be able to take care of multiple strains, and it should be cost effective. Now, as all of us know, we don't have an ideal vaccine. And the quest for an ideal vaccine will continue as it has continued for decades with other conditions. But whether we get there or not, the good news is that we have effective vaccines as we speak. A lot of questions keep coming up about trials, phase 1, 2, 3, 4. So let me quickly go through that. Phase 1, small number of volunteers, and the idea really is to assess safety, whether it's for a drug or for a vaccine, whether the vaccine generates an immune response, and also to determine the right dose. Phase 2 is several hundred volunteers to further assess safety and the ability to generate an immune response. Then we come to phase 3, which is what you need before approval. How effective is the vaccine? The term efficacy comes in, and there are thousands of volunteers that are given the vaccine and compared to a control group that is not given the vaccine. And then we have phase 4, which carries on for an extended period of time. Will the vaccine remain safe down the road? And what are the different types of vaccines that we know of? Because we've been using vaccines for a very long time. So there are inactivated vaccines where the pathogen is inactivated in the lab. Classical example is the polio vaccine, the polio killed vaccine, or the SAW vaccine. Then we have live vaccines, where a live but a weakened version of the virus is used. Classical example, mumps, measles, rubella, chickenpox. We then have a viral vector vaccine, first tried with Ebola, where we use a safe virus to deliver proteins that we want to use to elicit an immune response. We have the subunit approach, where we might use a protein on a sugar. And again, we have a lot of experience with this, with DPT being an example, diphtheria, whooping cough, tetanus, the combination meningococcal meningitis. And then we have the genetic approach, which are the nucleic acid vaccines, the DNA and the mRNA vaccine. And mRNA vaccine, for the first time, have been used against the SARS-CoV-2 virus. Now, where are we with vaccination? So currently there are about 91 vaccines in development. And I say this because, as weeks and months go by, we will get access to more and more vaccines. There are 184 in preclinical trials, 85 in phase 1, phase 2, 26 in phase 3, 8 are already approved. There is a lot of knowledge that we have garnered over the last 1 year. If you go on to PubMed Central, which is the database that has all the peer-reviewed publications, you type COVID-19 vaccination, you'll get 10,540 papers. That is huge, huge amounts of knowledge, data that we have access to. Now let's talk a little bit about the trial size, because there are lots of questions that are asked. Weren't the vaccines hurried? Was the trial size adequate or not? So if we look at Pfizer, BioNTech, 43,000 plus trial size. Moderna was about 30,000. If you look at AstraZeneca, 20,000. Johnson & Johnson, 40,000 plus. Novavax, about 20,000. Covaxin, which is the Indian vaccine, 25,000 plus. Sputnik, about 20,000. So very large trials. Now, in the past, it used to take a lot of time to develop a vaccine. The process used to be really slow, but now with access to better technology, we are able to develop vaccines. And what used to take years has now taken, as we've seen, months, or some might argue even weeks, from getting the vaccine ready to doing the trials to getting the emergency use authorization. Now we talk a lot about the size. So let me give you an example. The MMR trial and the chickenpox trial was studied in 5,000 individuals. And I've just given you examples from other vaccines that we are using against the SARS-CoV-2 virus, 20,000 to 40,000 plus. So the sample size is adequate. These vaccines have been adequately tested. So please let your mind be at rest.
Doctor, can I ask a simple question here?
Yes, please.
As you were saying कि body का जो memory होता है, simple language में, that वो याद रखता है and fight करता है, right?
Right.
भाषा में बोलती हूँ. तो एक बार जो COVID positive हो गए हैं लोग, तो उनकी ये जो antibodies होते हैं, won't they be remembered? Won't they last? That's a lot of people who are asking the same question there.
Yes, Jhansi, absolutely. So if you get a natural infection, then you do have antibodies against that, and your immune system will remember. And that's what happens with a lot of conditions. Say, for example, if you get chickenpox, you don't get chickenpox again, right? And the same logic is used in vaccines, that you give the vaccine, and if there's exposure, in all probability you'll be protected. But if you do get the infection will be mild. And again, that's what happens with the chickenpox vaccine. You have it, and if you get the infection, it'll be very mild. So coming to your question in terms of COVID-19, now it's a new disease. We don't know how long the natural immunity lasts. But yes, if you get a natural infection, that immunity is pretty solid. Whether you have antibodies or not is not the only thing we look at, because as I told you, we have the memory T and B cells. We also have cell-mediated immunity. But the question that everybody asks is, how long will this immunity last? And unfortunately, we don't have a clear answer. So if you had it once, will you get it again? The risk is very, very small. But do you even want that small risk? No. So now that there is access to vaccination, why not take that vaccine and enhance your protection? Of course, you should have recovered fully from the infection, wait for a few weeks, and then have the vaccine. And we'll talk about this because, this is an area which I'm sure a lot of your viewers will keep touching on in one form or the other. So coming to the other point which you asked me to address, which is efficacy, right? So what is vaccine efficacy? So this is calculated on the basis of a population that is vaccinated. And there's a formula, and I don't want to give a very complicated explanation. It's called 1 minus risk ratio. So you look at people who are vaccinated and they get the infection, you divide that by the people who are infected but have not been vaccinated, because in trials you have those who get it and then you have the placebo where they don't actually get the vaccine but they get an injection which does not have the vaccine. So if we look at Moderna, 5 people who were vaccinated got it, but 90 who were not vaccinated in the trial group got it. So risk ratio becomes 5 by 90, 1 minus 5 by 90, 94.4% success or efficacy. Pfizer, it was 8 against 162, so it's 95%. So that is what we mean by efficacy. Now let's talk about efficacy in the vaccines that are available in India. So we have Covishield, we have Covaxin. Covishield, we got impressive data about 70% plus, Covaxin 80% plus in phase 3 clinical trials. But do remember, you can't really compare the trial for one vaccine against the other. The trial conditions varied. Many of these trials are done in multiple countries like Covishield. What was the infection rate at that point in time in the community? What are the characteristics of the population that was studied? So you can't really compare one trial with another unless it's done in the same population under controlled conditions. So it's like comparing apples with oranges. So please do not do that. We have to look at individual data for a particular vaccine and look at everything around it. And with Sputnik, it's gone to 91, 92%. But, again, like I said, these are all multicentric trials. One very important data point before I hand it over to you so that we can start taking questions is the post-vaccination breakthrough infection. And this is data published by the PIB on 20th April in a press conference based on 1.1 crore Covaxin and 11.6 crore Covishield. And very impressive that in those who had received the first dose, the positive rate of getting an infection was 0.04% for Covaxin, 0.02 for Covishield. And for those after the second infection, it was 0.04 in Covaxin and 0.03% in Covishield. So 0.04, 0.03 is the kind of percentage that we are looking at. So clearly what has been shown, because when you do efficacy data, it's in a small trial, thousands. Now this is in crores who've had the vaccine, how many of them got an infection? And we see there that it's very small, minuscule. And I think that is very important, 0.04, 0.03%. And with that, over to you so that we can get cracking with the questions.
Right. So in one word, to sum up, vaccines' efficacy need not be doubted and everybody should get vaccinated. And with that, I dive into the YouTube chat questions. Madiyama asked this question: does vaccine adversely affect natural immunity in humans?
So I'm not quite sure what you mean by natural immunity. So, we are exposed to a lot of infection, right? Now, if you get exposed to that infection, it's a mild infection and you get natural immunity to it, wonderful. But what if you don't get natural immunity to that? You have to rely on vaccination because that's how you protect yourself. So let me give you an example, typhoid. Many of us have had typhoid. A natural infection with typhoid does not prevent a second infection, so you need vaccination. Now, if you get a natural chickenpox infection, you don't get chickenpox again. So I think to answer your question, it has to be addressed infection by infection, but we need immunity. We want herd immunity. So we either wait and get infected, which is not desirable as far as COVID-19 goes, or we go ahead and get the vaccine.
Right. Nabi Kanta Jha asks, should people with autoimmune disorders like lichen planus take COVID vaccine? There is little research on the effect of vaccines in such cases.
Very important question. And, we have a very large population with chronic conditions that, are rheumatological, immunological. We also have transplant patients, those who had a bone marrow transplant, liver transplant, kidney transplant, heart transplant. So, the vaccines haven't been studied enough. So this is an individual discussion that you need to have with your caregiver and have a discussion. Okay, this is what I currently am in terms of medication. And if you're on very potent medication, like you're on high dose steroids to suppress the underlying condition, and that's very relevant for a number of these conditions, then the physician might say, okay, listen, I want to wait. Let me try and see if I can decrease the dose of the steroids and then give you the vaccine. Or with several other monoclonal antibodies and other medication you're on, you decide in consultation with your caregiver, listen, I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I think this is a question that can be answered only by your specialist.
Okay, right. So the next question is from Veer Kumar Shivagnam. Which vaccine is preferred, Covaxin or Covishield? ये तो बहुत सारे लोगों में अभी स्पुतनिक भी आ जाएगा, तो choice है क्या हमारे पास?
Firstly, I mean, if you look at the data that the government shared on 20th of April, very robust data, 1 crore, 11 crore, 0.04%, 0.03%. So I think the question remains answered just with that data point. And of course, once Sputnik comes in and millions of doses of Sputnik is given, then I'm sure the government will issue the data on Sputnik as well.
Okay. Next question is Jito Budhwani ji's question. He had his first dose of Covishield on March 5th, but he was COVID positive on 29th March, negative on April 14th. When can he have his second dose? ऐसे तो बहुत सारे questions हैं, doctor.
Because I think what we are seeing is a lot of people have either had the infection and then when should they get vaccinated? And the answer to that, and I'm one of them, I've had the infection and then had the first vaccine, waiting for my second vaccine now, despite every precaution. So it just goes to prove that we are dealing with a very, very smart virus that needs how to beat whatever you might have. So, never, never, ever let your guard down. Not for a moment. You don't know when that critical moment when you get exposed happens. So have the first vaccine, say about 4 to 6 weeks. Now it depends. Usually it depends on the course. If your course was really smooth of the natural infection, you didn't really have too many problems and all, 4 weeks later, have the first one. And then depending on the recommendation, have the second dose. As far as Covaxin goes, it's 4 weeks. As far as Covishield, the recommendation that came out from the ministry was 6 weeks after the first dose. So that's if you had the infection. Now, we have individuals who just have the vaccine and then they get infection, like, the example that you gave. So the same logic will apply. Once you've recovered, wait for 4 weeks or so. Again, it depends. If it was a really severe infection and you were, hospitalized, went through an ICU and all, so wait for your body to recover. You don't want to constantly push your body. So 4 weeks can become 6 weeks. Now, certain countries, based on the logistics in terms of the availability of vaccines, that said, wait for a longer period of time. But I personally believe, given the kind of scenario we find ourselves in India, do not wait indefinitely. It's a call you have to take. 4 weeks seems appropriate. Could be 6 weeks, could be 8 weeks and longer. But again, have a discussion with your caregiver and take that call. But yes, despite having had the natural infection, please do have the 2 shots.
Right. Mr. Balamaniam is asking, I had my right temporal lobe cavernoma surgery in August 2017. Please advise, should I go ahead and take the vaccine?
So when was the surgery? In Feb?
2017 August.
Oh yeah, okay. So don't worry about that. It was years ago. So the kind of question you asked, a lot of other people who've had a procedure, who've had a stent put in, who've had surgery, who've had cancer in the past and have made a complete recovery, have this doubt in their mind. And the answer is you need to protect yourself against this virus. So please go ahead and get vaccinated, because honestly, that is one potent tool that we have. And, in a war-like situation, you mobilize all your resources. Vaccination is one important resource. And of course, there are other resources that everyone is familiar with. And we'll talk about that later. But clearly, vaccination is a tool that we must utilize.
Right. Let me combine a few questions here, Doctor, which are mostly asking about pre-existing illnesses or disorders. Especially here's Mr. Banukiran, who's asking, mother had brain stroke and now is on medication. She's on Ecosprin. Can she take? She's diabetic too. And somebody's asking, chemotherapy maintenance pe hai, Decamax injection, can they take? And wife has, Mr. Mukesh Rai is asking about, wife has cancer. Can she be taking vaccine?
Yeah, I think this is a very relevant question because, we have a lot of non-communicable diseases in our community. So let me answer some of the common ones that keep coming up. Cancer, you really need to have a discussion with your specialist, but we would want to vaccinate patients who have, had treatment for cancer or are undergoing treatment for cancer, please have a discussion, and then it's a decision that needs to be made based on what kind of therapeutic regimen are you on. Are you having radiation? Are you between chemo and radiation? Are you having chemo? What is the gap since your surgery, and so on and so forth? So there isn't a very generic answer, I'm afraid, I can give for that. Coming to those with diabetes, please go ahead and have the shot. Those with heart condition, please go ahead and have that shot. Chronic liver disease, please go and get vaccinated. Chronic kidney disease, go and get vaccinated. Rheumatological conditions, again, if it's stable rheumatoid arthritis and your small amount of doses of medication, please go ahead and have it. But yes, if you're on complicated medication, some of the rheumatological, immunological conditions, the treatment itself is very complex. It's immune suppressive, so you might not respond very well to the vaccine, because if you are through medication trying to control the immune system, as we do after transplant so that rejection doesn't happen, then the body's immune system is under the control of medication. So when you give a vaccine, it doesn't respond the way you would want it to respond to mount an immune response. So it's an individual discussion. Very common question, if you are on antiplatelet drugs, which is like ecosporin, please go ahead and get vaccinated. If you are on more potent anticoagulants, which are injectable, or where you have to monitor the through blood tests, the level of the blood thinning that has been achieved, and there is a very clear target that you're going for, please pick up the phone, talk to your doctor. The doctor might want to tweak the anti-clotting medication and then advise you. So I think it's best to talk, and these days, with better communication, you can achieve that. But for antiplatelet drugs, which is a very common question, please go ahead and get vaccinated. You don't have to stop medication.
Right. Here's another question about feeding moms, women and vaccination. Let me take all the questions which are there. One, can a lactating mother take a vaccine? Two, can a woman take vaccination in her menstrual cycle? Periods mein le sakte hai kya? And three, pregnant women le sakte hai kya?
So one of the things, when I was shown that WhatsApp that started floating around about periods, and I was saying, wow, don't people have imagination? Honestly, I mean, I've been practicing as a doctor for 25 years. Never has anyone asked me this question before. And then one morning, the WhatsApp is flooded by people. Oh, vaccination is going to open up. What about girls? What about women for having their periods? And I'm like, what is the connection? Please just ponder, just think, close your eyes for 1 minute and think, how can there be a connection? How can there be? But I must compliment someone's imagination to be able to sort of imagine this, post it, create huge amounts of confusion. So, I mean, that person should perhaps give out some really solid messages in an interesting manner about protection. And I think given the skill set to be able to confuse so many people with this message, if the messaging is about, hey, listen, do these 5 things against COVID, it would be great. So no connection whatsoever with periods. Please, let's not even go down this route. Pregnant and lactating ladies. So let's address pregnancy. Obviously, when you are expecting, you don't want to have medication. You don't want to get exposed to infection. You also don't want any foreign antigens coming into your body. But we have to weigh the risk and the benefit. For example, every pregnant lady will get the tetanus vaccine. We want the tetanus toxoid to protect her and to pass immunity through her to her baby. So this was debated by all the different societies who oversee obstetrics in the world. So in Britain, based on data that was studied of 9,000 pregnant ladies who got the vaccine. You see, because when the trial started, and sometimes the pregnancy test can be negative and you discover later that you had the vaccine, but you were pregnant. So that's how some data emerged. So based on data on 9,000, they recommended in Britain that pregnant women should be offered vaccination with the same criteria as applies to the general population. So that's the Royal College recommendations from United Kingdom. The American College said, you shouldn't even do pregnancy testing before giving a vaccine, thereby clearly saying that yes, pregnant ladies can be vaccinated. FOXY, which is the Indian Society, they came out with a position paper very recently, and they said protection through vaccination should be extended to pregnant and lactating mothers. Very clear recommendation. And the real benefits of vaccination in pregnant and lactating women seem to far outweigh any theoretical or remote risk of vaccination. And so the recommendation was women should be counseled and empowered to make their own decision, supported by their caregivers. So if you're expecting, have a discussion with your obstetrician And the obstetrician in all probability will say, listen, I think you should get vaccinated. And the same applies to lactating ladies. Please have a word with your pediatrician. And the answer in all probability would be, please continue, of course, breastfeeding and have the shot.
Right. So breastfeeding women, please continue having your shot. And next question is Atulya's question. My second dose of Covishield was done on 22nd April. I've been having low SpO2 of 91 3 weeks back. Now the SpO2 is back to 94. No symptoms of COVID. Should I still get the RT-PCR done?
Okay, so just read this again because I need to get the dates right.
Yeah, right. The second dose of Covishield was done on 22nd April. I've been having low SpO2 of 91, that is 3 weeks back. Now the SpO2 is 94, no symptoms of COVID. Should I get the RT-PCR done?
So the question is, you got the vaccine. We know that the protection from the vaccine kicks in high numbers in 2 weeks after the second dose. So you actually perhaps are in that area where you could have been exposed and got an infection, but you didn't really have any other symptoms. So if your SpO2 is fine, you don't have any symptoms, you're fine. Because if you were actually having the infection and you were to pass it on, and if you didn't isolate yourself, then you would have possibly passed it on to others. So many days later, if you have no symptoms, I'm not pretty sure. I'm not sure you would want to go down the RT-PCR route.
Right. Next question is an interesting one from Mr. Dilsher Singh. He says, how come so many persons are still needing hospitalization despite being vaccinated once?
Okay, so I don't know, Dilsher, if you had a chance to look at any data, but there isn't that much data from India in terms of hospitalization after vaccination. Of course, how effective it is, we saw that data that the government issued on 20th of April. So we at Apollo Delhi actually studied all the healthcare professionals who got the vaccine. And we found that, yes, there is some breakthrough infection that people get. And in healthcare environment, of course, the exposure is much higher. So it is to be expected that the risk of getting an infection after a complete dose of vaccination, complete course of vaccination will be higher than the community at large. And we found about 3.6%, which we are going to publish in a peer-reviewed journal. But the good news is that nobody needed hospitalization. Nobody had any serious complications. And great news is nobody died. So yes, you might get an infection. You might have some symptoms, but you are unlikely to get hospitalization, unless, of course, you have a lot of comorbidities and so on and so forth. When we looked at the single dose, the chances of getting an infection are higher than if you had 2 doses, of course. But the numbers weren't large enough for us to be able to make a recommendation in terms of, or for example, not a recommendation, but to come to a conclusion. But none of those individuals also required hospitalization. So our data is slightly different. But the important point to remember is that even if you get the infection, you do well.
Done. Doctor, next question. I think there are a lot of questions regarding this. You have already answered, but I would want you to reiterate again. A lot of people are asking, they have been infected with COVID after the first shot, and how long post-recovery should one get the second shot?
So make a recovery, and I think then give it 4 weeks.
Make a recovery and then 4 weeks. That's it.
That's reasonable. I don't think any doctor is going to recommend longer than that. If someone wants to get it a bit earlier, again, we don't really have a clear answer. Can I get it in 2 weeks or 3 weeks? But usually after recovery, give the body some amount of time. And listen, your likelihood of getting the vaccine, getting the infection is very low. And there's a huge queue. So let others get the vaccine before you, because you've had the vaccine, you've had the infection. Now you're not going to be so unlucky to get it again, right? So you will have some natural antibodies and natural immunity that would have kicked in because of the infection. So you could wait a bit and let others come in and get at least their first shot, at least the young people who've been crying for this for months now.
That's a very valid observation, doctor. We all need to understand that the country needs to at least get larger chunk of population with the first dose of vaccination, especially people who need to come out and work. They need to be vaccinated well first.
And if you have an infection and you have immunity, then you have a fairly decent amount of antibodies and the cell-mediated immunity kicked in. So you can wait and not worry about it.
Done. Nikhil Shete's question, I have an allergy of sulfatetramycin, ampicillin, and amoxicillin. Should I take the vaccine? And which one do you suggest?
So, you of course, one would have to dig a little bit deeper into the allergies in terms of what kind of reaction you had and so on. One would have to go through the entire list of all the adjuvants and everything that is present in both vaccines. So it's not just about, the Covishield has the adenovirus as the viral vector, but there are several other components that go into making a vaccine. So one would have to look at what you might have reacted in the past to, what is present in the vaccine, and then take a decision about which one. But that is why we recommend that the vaccination takes place with 30 minutes of observation after the vaccine, so that if you're going to, God forbid, develop a reaction, it happens in our presence and we are able to manage it.
Right. And also, I think Apollo 247 as an app has a feature, post-vaccination related queries also can be addressed and a doctor can be reached once they are on the platform. Yes. Doctor, next question is from Mr. Naveen Reddy. He has taken Covaxin first dose and second dose is scheduled today. After taking the vaccine, can I use painkillers because I have stones in the kidney? Does everybody require to take a painkiller after vaccine, doctor?
No, not everybody does. Some people take a paracetamol. It again also depends on the threshold of the individual, right? Some people will say, oh my God. And then there are going to be some people saying, yeah, it was a breeze, I didn't even feel. So the pain threshold varies from individual to individual. But listen, if you get a bit of fever and after the second dose, you got slightly more fever and you got body aches and all, please, by all means, have a paracetamol. Now, if for your other condition, you have to have a painkiller, then go ahead and have that.
You're right. So next question is from Monica Vermani. Son is 20 years of age. He had loss of taste and smell, but RT-PCR is negative. Should he get his vaccine?
Well, we don't know whether he has the infection or not, because there are not very many conditions that actually produce loss of smell and taste. A lot of other conditions. So, definitely on the horizon is to know whether we have an infection with the SARS-CoV-2 virus or not. But the good news, young people do really well. So don't worry. You have a 20-year-old who's healthy and going to be fine. I won't just jump into getting the vaccine just yet. Let's see how things go over the next few days, if he develops more symptoms or not. The important thing is we don't want him, should he have the infection, to pass it on to others, especially elderly people in the family. So I think let's not worry about vaccination at this point in time. Let's see whether he has the infection or not. Try and make a diagnosis. If we have to test, we'll test again. If there are features suggestive of an infection, otherwise best to remain isolated. If there are no symptoms, fine. Then talk about vaccination maybe a couple of weeks later.
Right. Doctor, there are one or two people who have mentioned their antibodies testing and they're saying that I have so much of antibodies. Should I go ahead and get my vaccination done?
Yeah. So, like I said, there's been a tremendous amount of excitement about antibodies, and it's human nature. You've had a jab or you've had a natural infection. You want to track what happened to me. So the question that comes up repeatedly is should I or should I not get vaccinated? The answer to that is yes, please get vaccinated. Question number 2 is when should I get vaccinated? Now, are you going to follow this week on week or every 2 weeks or 4 weeks? The answer is no. When you get a slot, go ahead and get vaccinated. Don't think too much about because I have people who have Excel sheets that they share on antibodies. So you don't need to worry so much about the antibodies, really.
Okay. So just relax, get yourself vaccinated. Do not get yourself tested for antibodies as much. Leave it for, we're also overloading our laboratories, doctor. The diagnostic centers are also being overloaded. All right, next question is, all right, Prabhu Yayavaram. Vaccination for 18 plus has begun. Covishield or Covax. What are the treatments for clotting issues post-vaccination?
So I'm glad that, this question came up about clotting. So yes, there's been a lot of interest in certain complications with certain vaccines. So first, let me start off with the mRNA. So several months ago, you would recollect that there was a newspaper story about a lot of elderly people dying in Norway in nursing homes after an mRNA vaccine. And they said, okay, they had the vaccine, elderly people in nursing homes, and then they died. So the vaccination perpetuated their death. Clearly, it does make headlines. And then when the Norwegian authorities looked at and studied, they found that many people die in nursing homes in Norway in that age group because of old age. Yes, they might have had the vaccine, but that many were dying anyway. So there was no association between the mRNA vaccine and death. Similarly with clotting. So let's look at clotting. You've seen the number of guidelines that have come from different European countries. Okay, the young can have it. No, the young can't have it. You should only have it if you follow 1, 2, 3 criteria. Vaccines being held back from administration for a few weeks. Then it goes to the authorities, and then they review the data and come back and saying, yes, you can go ahead and do that. So I think there's been a lot of controversy and a lot of confusion that has been created in the minds of a lot of people about clotting. So what happens with the data with the Astra vaccination and coagulation or thrombosis? It is in the vicinity of, I think, 5 or 6 per million on those who get it. And the risk, if you get COVID, is 39 per million. So the risk of thrombosis is 39 per million if you get the infection, vis-a-vis 5 or 6 per million if you don't get it. So it's 7 times more if you get it. So the question is, you want yourself protected, go get the jab. One question that, when Jhansi ji, we were talking about antibodies, I wanted to mention that there are, personalities vary. People, there are people who like very robust, very clear kind of, I did this, what is the result, and so on and so forth. So they'll go ahead and get an antibody done. And really, there's no harm in it. But just want to mention one thing. If you've had the 2 vaccines, put your mind to rest. You want the antibodies, great. And if your antibodies are high, that's fine. But then when you make this decision, if your antibodies are not high, then don't have sleepless nights. Because you do have the cell-mediated immunity and you have the memory T and B cells that you shouldn't forget. So if your antibodies are not high, because I have people who are worrying, hey, my antibodies haven't risen, my antibodies haven't risen, my antibodies, and I'm sleeping, I'm not able to sleep. I mean, you've had the 2 vaccines, relax. It's okay. Maybe your body is not showing a robust humoral immune response, but you do have the cell-mediated immune response, which the body, which we can't measure through routine tests. So if you do the test, please don't end up getting so worried with the result. That's my submission.
Mukul Saxena ji, I think your question is answered. He was saying, should I get an antibody test after the COVID vaccination to confirm if I have ample protection? I think that is answered. Well, next question is about alcohol post-vaccination. A lot of people are asking this. So what are the effects?
Listen, nobody really studied. Hey, listen, we were all grappling with trying to find, focusing on treatment and focusing on finding a vaccine and then a rollout program. Which company would have, okay, listen, you can have 60 ml of alcohol today, have the vaccine, and listen, you will have 30 ml of alcohol and have the vaccine. Hey, listen, you don't have any alcohol and let's have the vaccine. And let's see, okay, 2 days from now, you have so much alcohol and let's see what happens. And let's start of look at the immune system and see how it responds. So the question is, listen, you're not really going to find robust data in terms of alcohol and vaccination. So the question is, alcohol is bad for your health anyway. Let me actually, as a doctor, take my 30 seconds on Jhansi's program and give out this loud and clear message. Alcohol is bad for you, period. So let's not even link it with vaccination. Finished. Okay. It's not something healthy.
All right, doctor. So next question is about the types of vaccines that are available and your take on the Johnson & Johnson single dose, the Sputnik, Covaxin, or Covishield.
Oh, we are hoping that, and with we've seen over the last few weeks what the government has come out with in terms of encouraging foreign companies to come in and show their interest in providing the vaccines to the Indian population. So we already have 3. There's a 4th vaccine that will come up, the Zydus Cadila vaccine, which is indigenous, developed in India. The phase 3 data should be submitted anytime, and based on that, the authorities will assess. So we have that. We also have the Johnson & Johnson vaccine showing interest in coming to India. We also have the Novavax, hopefully that will become available. And of course, the 2 big ones that are being used. I don't know how much of a supply they have with Moderna, because, whether they are able to provide outside the US. Pfizer, of course, has the ability to provide and has provided outside the United States. So how much of that we'll get. But by and large, if you look at all the data that we have, you will see a few percentage points difference between different vaccines. But by and large, the good news is that all the vaccines that are authorized, which is emergency use authorization, a term that was used for the first time for COVID vaccination, provides protection that is significant, provides protection that keeps you out of hospital, provides protection in preventing serious complication, and most importantly, death. Now, we don't know which out of these vaccines is going to provide us protection for 9 months, 6 months, 18 months, 1 year. That question is unanswered because it's only after you've given a vaccine in a very large proportion of the population and you study, you get to know, hey, listen, what happens in terms of the protection waning. So to answer your question, in the US, in the UK, in many parts of the world, people did not agonize about which vaccine to take. If the vaccine was approved by the authorities, and let me remind everyone, the WHO had said that any vaccine that provides protection more than 50% is a good vaccine. 50%. And you're seeing all vaccines in the range of high 70s, 80s. Yes, some are in the high 90s as well. So when you get the opportunity to get the vaccine, just go ahead and get it. Do not agonize too much about the choice of vaccine because frankly, the choice of vaccines wasn't really made available to most people in most countries. And given the humongous task of vaccinating such a large population, the chances are that there won't be that many opportunities of choosing. So you get a slot, take it, get vaccinated, put your mind at rest, but of course continue to keep your guard up because this infection is actually going to be around for a while. Of course, one would hope that what we are seeing, this wave goes and ends quickly, but this virus is going to be in circulation for an extended period of time. So let us not forget that.
Doctor, as we'll have to wrap up in the next 10 minutes or so, I'll quickly put the questions to you. There are people who are allergic to penicillin. There are people who are taking pneumonitis ke liye, steroids. Can these people take vaccination?
So like I said, one would have to look at what they're taking, what the adjuvants are. Discussion with the individual healthcare provider would be the appropriate answer to this question.
All right. Next question is from Danny Kintani. Sir, I had donated a bottle of blood after 10 days of my first Covishield vaccine. Now I'm afraid, do I have to take the first dose again before I go for the second dose?
No, not at all. It's not that the blood transfusion or whatever donation you did resulted in the body's immune response to the vaccine go away. So you did something very noble, which everyone should think about. So I'd like to applaud you for what you did and don't worry about it. Just have your vaccine as scheduled.
The second dose done. That's it. Wonderful, yeah, Danny. Thank you so much for donating. And next question is, what will happen after second dose? How long will it be protecting me from the virus? Will there be a third or fourth dose requirement, doctor?
So 2 weeks after the second dose, I think you should be well protected. We don't have the answer to the need for a third dose. But based on what we are seeing, it is likely that there could be a need for a third dose at some point in time. We don't know when. So it could very well be, and that discussion has already started in the vaccine manufacturing units across the globe. And these discussions are already happening in the Western world. What type of vaccine would be the third vaccine? Will it take care of some of the mutations that we are seeing? When should it be administered and so on and so forth? But that I think is for later. The goal here is get all Indians vaccinated with 2 doses and do that as soon as is practically feasible.
All right. So now with the recommendation for pregnant women that you shared, which is the trimester? Sridhar Uni is asking, which is the trimester that you recommend to take the vaccine?
Again, a good question. It's going to be based on the availability and access, I think, because, not everybody is going to go ahead and get the vaccine right away. We don't know how long the immunity would last, but I think I really like the British recommendations, which are that pregnant women should be treated exactly the way non-pregnant women are when it comes to vaccination.
So there are two questions about plasma donation, doctor. One question was, can I donate plasma after getting the vaccination done? And second question is Mr. Vijayananda Patnaik, who says that he was found negative after having after being found negative post-recovery. He also had metastatic TB and epileptic attack 3 times in the past. Can I donate plasma now?
So to be able to donate plasma, it's extremely important that the antibodies are measured, because we need plasma when the antibodies are high for plasma to be useful in the person that is going to receive the plasma. So for the gentleman who donated the plasma, get your antibodies done, and then I'm sure the unit will take a call in taking a donation from you. For the gentleman who's had so many medical conditions, I must applaud you again for your spirit, for your positivity, and for you to even raise this question, given the fact that you've gone through so much. So again, this is a decision to be made with your doctor about the tuberculosis. I mean, about the epilepsy, not really, but about the tuberculosis and, what kind of active infection are we dealing with, and so on and so forth, and your health.
Right. I did not properly understand कि अगर वैक्सीन के बाद antibodies develop होते हैं तो वो लोगों का plasma use होता है, doctor?
So what are we doing with plasma? What we are doing is we're trying to transfer the antibodies from the plasma through the plasma into the person who's got the infection. So how the antibodies come, is not the issue, as long as you have robust antibodies.
All right. So before we wrap up, two quick things from you, doctor. The other vaccinations and COVID vaccine, for example, hepatitis B, and somebody was asking about anti-rabies that he had to take, the clash of vaccines, and two, about safe immunization for children in these times.
Okay, very important. So if you get, a dog bite, you need the rabies vaccine. Forget you've had the vaccine and all for COVID is fine, but you need the rabies vaccine. You need to have 0, 3, 7, 14, 30, whatever the schedule that you have to have if you got a dog bite. Other vaccines, we say it's good to wait if you can wait for 2 to 4 weeks. Say you need the hepatitis B vaccine or A vaccine or what have you, you wait for a few weeks. I'm a pediatrician, so I'm glad you asked a question about vaccination of children. It's extremely important that we do not delay indefinitely routine vaccination for babies and for infants and for children. But at the same time, we have to be a little practical. Now, if there is a lockdown happening, we don't use the word lockdown, but say restrictions or curfew of some sort, then have a chat with your pediatrician and decide, listen, can I wait for a couple of weeks? And quite often it's okay to wait a couple of weeks or wait for 4 weeks. It also depends whether it's a booster or not. So in younger babies, you really want to vaccinate them quickly, but if it's the 18-month booster, it could wait. So, it's a call that you must take, but it can't be, listen, there's COVID going around. So, okay, 2022 may vaccinate karenge. No, it doesn't work like that. Because there are these questions that come up, okay, I want to wait 6 months. No, please don't wait 6 months. So a few weeks is okay, but not months. And again, primary dose of vaccination versus boosters, different decision.
All right. So my last question, Mr. M.V. Ranganathan has posted a very important question. What happens if the delay in vaccine second dose happens because of shortage at the hospital?
Okay, a little bit of delay is fine. Like I said, for certain vaccines, the window in terms of the second dose is pretty large. And sometimes the pressure is intense. So don't worry about it. It's not that the efficacy of your first dose will decrease because there was a delay in the second dose. So don't worry about that. One question, Jhansi, which I must answer because nobody's asked this, I'm surprised. If I take one vaccine from one particular manufacturer, and can I change to the second dose from another? And this is a question that's quite burning, very important in the West. So there's some trials going on. Okay, 1 dose of Pfizer, then 1 of Astra, 1 of Moderna, 1 of Pfizer. So 1 of this and 1 of that, and we will have some data. But as of now, we strongly recommend that you have both doses of the same vaccine.
All right. So not both doses of Covaxin,
Covishield or Sputnik when it.
That's it. Right. Thank you so much, doctor. And before we leave, can I quickly have some tips to take care from the virus, the COVID disease?
Sure. So let me give you 7 tips to stay safe. So 7. Tip number 1, get vaccinated. Empower yourself, have all the knowledge in the world, but please put skepticism aside. Go ahead and get vaccinated. Step number 2, Social distancing. Please, 6 feet is important. Third, mask. Mask up properly, proper masking, not mask below the nose, loosely fitting. You don't know the quality of the mask, then that's really useless. Third, sanitization and nothing like hand washing. So social distancing, masking, sanitization, which we refer to as SMS, is here to stay. It's a way of life. It's a part of life. Might as well embrace it with an open mind and not resist it because it's not going anywhere. You need it for yourself. You need it for your loved ones. You need it for your parents, grandparents, family. If you have symptoms, don't hide in one corner. Get tested. What will happen if you turn out to be positive? Well, we know how to manage this, but you will also protect others in the family. So please, if you have symptoms, get tested. Tip number 6. If you turn out to be positive, isolate. Pick up the phone, talk to your doctor, get onto different apps, get onto our app, talk to a doctor, get advice. Please do not use advice that you see floating around on different WhatsApp groups, 10 medications, 12 medications, 9 medications. And if you're a parent, please disregard that because children are not miniature adults. So you can't say, okay, 1/3, 1/4, half of what the adult is having. So please isolate and contact your doctor and please follow advice. The doctor, based on experience, and there is a lot of experience in India with treatment. At Apollo, we've treated 120,000 people with COVID-19. So there is a body of evidence that we have, experience that we have. Please follow advice. So let me summarize quickly. Get vaccinated, SMS. If you have symptoms, test. If you're positive, isolate, contact your doctor and follow advice.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Anupam Sibal. It was a great session. Thank you so much for your precious time. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much.
So that was Dr. Anupam Sibal and his great energy and enthusiasm. He's busted some myths and given us some facts. Let's continue with the show as Dr. leaves. And here's a health quiz coming up your way. Health R has an opportunity for you to win prizes from Apollo 247. You can answer the questions in the chat box. Winner's name will be announced towards the end of this show. Winners, if you're declared, please do mail your details to marketing@apollo247.com and we shall share the gift vouchers with you. So here's your question number 1. Which company has developed the Covaxin? Which company has developed the vaccine for COVID-19, which is called the Covaxin? Answer पता है तो please type कीजिए question number 1 and your answer. Coming up is question number 2. In which country is Sputnik V vaccine developed? In which country is the Sputnik V vaccine developed? I repeat my question number 1. Which company has developed the Covaxin vaccine, which is in India, of course. Which country, my question number 2. In which country is the Sputnik V vaccine developed? Question number 3 coming up. Which feature on the Apollo 247 app allows you to book RT-PCR test? Which feature on the Apollo 247 app allows you to book RT-PCR test? बहुत सिंपल है. अगर आंसर पता नहीं है तो आपका ऐप खोल दीजिए and देख लीजिए कौन सा टैब पे है. Answer type कीजिए. Let me see what are the answers coming in. I'm waiting for your answers, guys. You will be, wow, lot of answers. Wow. Russia, Bharat Biotech. ठीक है, last question का भी आंसर देख लेते हैं, but before that, let me tell you that अगर COVID positive निकले हैं और घर पे आप isolate करना चाहते हैं, do not panic. Apollo 247 brings you doc support COVID-19, COVID recovery with Apollo's expertise. The benefits of COVID home isolation program are you can have a regular doctor consultation, regular follow-ups, health assistance on call. And you have 2 packages. One is a basic plan, which is a 7 days plan, which comes at 549. And second one is an extended plan, which is 14 days package at 999. That is 999 rupees. You just have to scan the barcode which is on the screen to avail, or go to apollo247.com. The website has the link to avail doc support COVID-19, which is a home isolation program with Apollo expertise. So देखते हैं आज के winners कौन हैं? The winners are Nanjundappa SB, Anand Babu, Rajat Bhatia. Congratulations. Please do write to us at marketing@apollo247.com to claim your gifts, and the gift will be shared to you on the app. on the mail. All right. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining. It was very interesting, and the questions were very valid. Your questions are answers for many more who are watching this show. So thank you. Here are some gift coupons which you can use on Apollo 247 app. Please download the app to use these coupons. Apollo 247 is an app where you get up to ₹299 off on online consultation with Apollo doctors, and use coupon medicine10 to get 10% off on pharmacy orders. Log on to Apollo 247 to use these coupons. Thank you so much, all of you. Please stay safe, stay at home if possible. Thank you so much for joining us. Next week, we shall bring you yet another Apollo expert to answer your questions. Namaskar. Stay safe.